Fam, another day at the Madlanga Commission, and today was not a particularly good day for former Ekurhuleni City Manager Dr. Imogen Mashazi. Take a look at the questions that she was subjected to.
Mapiyeye was suspended on the 25th of September 2024.
Correct.
You retired end of July 2025.
Correct.
The question is, from 17th May 2024 to the end of July 2025, do you recall appointing anyone to act as an acting chief of police, and if so, who that was?
At the bottom or at the top of my head, I won't recall who I appointed. Can we be given an opportunity to get the letters of appointment so that you can correctly furnish the commission the correct information?
I'm sure that the commission will accept that. And remembering that there is a growing list of issues to address in your supplementary statement, so if you could address yourself to that question in the supplementary statement. And I think there was also an adjunct question to that posed by Commissioner Khumalo. Just to check, Commissioner Khumalo, would her response to my question answer yours?
Yes, my question was really after Chief Mapiyeye was suspended in September 2024, who was appointed acting chief of police.
So let's give you some context there. Who is Dr. Mashazi? She is the former Ekurhuleni city manager. She retired earlier this year. And as the city manager, she played a key role in overseeing, sometimes even having direct control over appointments within the municipality, right? The city manager is kind of like the CEO of the municipality of Ekurhuleni. And of course, one of the bodies or entities which is linked to that city manager role via a chain of accountability is, of course, the Metropolitan Police Department, the EMPD, the Ekurhuleni Police. And at the Madlanga Commission, we've heard a series of scenarios painted concerning Ekurhuleni and what has been happening there. Why does it matter? Because it seems as if a picture has emerged that there is this kind of parallel police department. There's the official police department, which is supposed to protect people, but then there's the shadow police department, where a grouping of police figures are engaged in extra legal activity and effectively operating with impunity. And why does that matter? Well, that matters because the whole reason this Madlanga Commission was set up was because of allegations that law enforcement agencies have been captured, sometimes by criminal interests. And so what was this parallel police department doing? Well, they were giving blue lights to VIP security companies who were owned by alleged criminal kingpins. So organized crime was controlling the police department on this version. The tail was wagging the dog. So what we were learning with Dr. Imogen Mashazi's testimony was, how does this city manager play a role in facilitating and allowing and permitting this parallel policing entity within Ekurhuleni to take shape? And of course, the key figure in the Ekurhuleni police, who is alleged to have been the villain of this piece, is Julius Mkhwanazi, not to be confused with Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi, General Mkhwanazi, who did the press conference. Julius Mkhwanazi is a key figure in the Ekurhuleni police. He was acting police chief. He was deputy commissioner in Ekurhuleni. And he is supposed to have been the so-called ringleader of this parallel shadow policing state within Ekurhuleni. So the question is, how was this allowed by the city manager? And Imogen Mashazi, over the last couple of days, has been peppered with questions about how this was allowed to happen. And she simply, as you saw in the example clip, hasn't been able to explain how come Mkhwanazi was basically irregularly appointed. How come he was allowed to appoint something in excess of like 50 people into the department, even though he wasn't the formal chief? How come the actual formal chief of Ekurhuleni police Mr. Mapiyeye was kind of sidelined and eventually pushed out over allegations that he describes as bogus allegations of sexual harassment and misconduct, which he says were effectively trumped up to sideline him from his role of power. And of course, Mashazi made those allegations against him that he had been guilty of sexual misconduct or sexual harassment, even abuse. And what was said, Advocate Makhape Selo, SC, asked her, was there any evidence of this? Could they adduce any evidence? Could she adduce any evidence? Mashazi, that is, and she wasn't able to really produce that evidence. So time and time again, what we've really learned over these last 2 days of testimony is that at the heart of Ekurhuleni, the city manager was aiding and abetting this reign of impunity within the Ekurhuleni Police Department. And we've heard a number of witnesses before suggesting this was the case. Now we've heard from those who are accused. And as has become quite common, those who have been accused in this commission have not really been able to dislodge the claims against them. And so, unfortunately, Dr. Mashazi had quite a torrid time in the witness box, and the commissioners and indeed even the evidence leaders began to lose patience with her. So, in terms of the Ekurhuleni picture, again, Mkhwanazi, now I'm talking about General Mkhwanazi's allegations of criminal capture of the justice system, are looking pretty strong and pretty credible. What also happened at the commission today was that Gardening Leave Minister Senzo Mchunu showed up at the commission. Damn. Brought in the legal big guns, Advocate Thembeka Ncukaitobi, representing him, talking about preliminary matters at the beginning. I just do want to say this, and maybe it'll hit home because now it's not about me and my lawyer father, who sometimes is known to represent controversial clients, like any good lawyer. It can be frustrating when there is a public figure who you don't like, gets a lawyer, and that lawyer really fights for their client, but please don't attack Thembeka Ncukaitobi for doing his job. The literal job of lawyers is to defend people who may have broken the law. Otherwise, we don't need lawyers. If no one breaks the law, then you don't need lawyers, right? You can't have a criminal justice system that functions if you don't have people who are accused of wrongdoing also getting the legal representation that they deserve. Because otherwise, what are we really saying? Are we saying that some people are so bad that they don't even deserve to be represented? If it is true that Senzo Mchunu is guilty of corruption or some form of capture, then no matter how good his lawyer is, the truth will come out with all the legal minds in that commission. But I just did want to say that we should never identify lawyers with their clients. Every lawyer has to represent a controversial client at some point in their legal life. So I just wanted to defend Advocate Ncukaitobi from the public attacks because I know that they can leave a sting. But anyway, so Mchunu brought his legal team there, and an interesting thing happened. They asked that Mchunu gets a chance for re-examination, which effectively means that his lawyers will be able to ask him questions after the commission's evidence leaders are done. And that's great for Senzo Mchunu, although I'm sure every witness who would have wanted to come to the commission would have loved that privilege. So it's going to set an interesting precedent going forward. But watching that re-examination will also be interesting. Of course, Mchunu himself is facing a barrage of questions. There are not just clouds over his head. There are cumulonimbus gray structures above his head. And it's going to be tough for him to really remove the doubts that have been cast over him, because his story hasn't been adding up since the ad hoc commission, the ad hoc committee. We want to know, why was he so fast? Guys, let's be honest. ANC politicians never act with haste unless it's the G20, right? So why did Mchunu wake up one day and just disband this commission on the 31st of December? Nochal. December's already coming. Do any of you feel like you want to urgently disband anything Right now, this is the time of rest. And yet Mkhunu decided to make this massive political decision overnight, effectively. We don't know why he did that, and he hasn't given us a good explanation for that. Moreover, the explanations that he has given in Parliament have been shot down by future witnesses, because he said, no, it's because that task team was so expensive. And then the CFO came and said, yeah, but it wasn't more expensive than other task teams. It was actually like half as expensive. So that couldn't be a reason. Then he said, no, we got a financial note which said that we must disband it. And then the person who wrote that note said that was completely taken out of context. So Mkhunu is really on a very bad wicket here. And I am really fascinated to see what questions he get posed to him, because it's going to be interesting to see how he tries to defend the rationality of his decision, because quite apart from whether that decision was damaging, we also have the question as to whether it was illegal, whether he even had the power to make it. And even if he did have the power to make that decision, whether it was procedurally correct in the way that he exercised that power, which I doubt very highly. We might have an abstract debate about the blurry lines between the minister and the national commissioner and who has the power, but you still have to exercise that power in a procedurally reasonable manner. And Mkhunu was far from procedural in the precipitous way in which he executed that decision. So he's going to be asked those questions. He's also going to be asked questions about this interministerial committee, because the president set up a committee. Speaking of the president, let me remember that later. The president set up a committee, and then in a fit of absence of mind, the committee fell into disuse. And then Mkhunu says, well, because no one resurrected it, it died. But no one formally ended that interministerial committee, which was comprised of multiple different ministers, from criminal justice to police to the president himself getting briefings, and so correctional services. So what happened to that committee? This argument of Mkhunu's that it somehow dissolved into thin air without any formal closing out meeting or minutes saying it should be closed, again, just strikes me as stretching the bounds of credulity. So he's going to be asked those interesting questions, but I'm really keen for him to be asked, evidence leaders, please. This is big now. Let's go. In the name of Advocate Chaskelson, I beseech you, please ask more questions about this briefing that Mkhunu said he had with the president. We need the exact date. When did Mkhunu meet with the president to brief him on the disbandment of this political killings task team? All we have from the ad hoc committee is it was somewhere around Jan or Feb. We need the exact date because we need to know when the president knew, and that's very important for when the president comes to the commission and hopefully the ad hoc committee and answers the question that he has to answer about how much he knew about this disbandment before, during, and after. Now, unfortunately, we've got a bit of a disjointed schedule from here because Mkhunu testified a little bit at the beginning today. There was nothing major. It was all preliminary stuff. And then he's going away for a day, and Julius Mkhwanazi, the Ekurhuleni police official who's been facing these allegations, is going to come tomorrow, and then Mkhunu kind of comes back. So we're going to have to keep multiple threads going throughout the week. I believe Shadrach Sibia is not going to be testifying this week, so we'll see when we get to hear from him, but he's obviously an important voice we also need to hear from, and we need to hear his side of the story. So that's about it for what's going on at the commissions today, and we'll be back tomorrow with some more analysis. Of course, we'll keep bringing you the streams. Please check out my interview with Gogo Aubrey Machikri, which came out today. Check out the first ever live interview on SMWX with Mighty Jamie, where we dissect these issues. And make sure you comment down below, like, share, subscribe. Drop us, buy my team some coffee. There's that dollar icon. In South Africa, it should be a Woolies bag icon. Click the dollar icon and give us a financial contribution if you like what we're doing over here. And other than that, fam, I'll see you on the next one. Aye.